Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men number 62, cover dated March 1997. So this is new artist Carlos Pacheco coming aboard the title after Andy Kubert's 4-year run. And he begins it with a 3-part story featuring Shang Chi, the master of Kung Fu. So a very popular character from 1970s Marvel, hadn't really been around much in the 1980s, but he's being brought back now by Scott Lobdell and crossing over with the X-Men. And the cover caption is Hellfire in Hong Kong, because we saw at the end of the previous issue the return of Sebastian Shaw, previously thought killed by his son, Shinobi Shaw, but in actual fact revealed to be alive. So it's going to be intriguing to see how all of that develops and turns out. So the cover pretty cool here. I like the use of the fluorescent orange on the cover, imitating all of the neon lighting of the location Hong Kong. And of course we've got feral looking Wolverine here with his bone claws, all of these shuriken flying at him, and Shang-Chi as well. And we've got Carlos Pacheco's signature over here in the corner, inked by our Thibert and coloured by Liquid. So let's open this one up to the splash page, and we get a kind of like a title page here. We haven't really seen this before, and so it is a opportunity for Carlos Pacheco to draw the X-Men who will feature in this story. So we've got Cannibal there, Storm, Cyclops, and Phoenix, and of course feral Wolverine, and some interesting foreshortening here as his fist is coming towards us with those bone claws, and of course Shang-Chi. And you can see very clearly that Shang-Chi is very much modeled on Bruce Lee in terms of his physical appearance and physiognomy. The title of this story is Games of Deceit and Death. This is part 1 of 3. And whoops-a-daisy, we've got Scott Lobdell credited with plot there, Ben Raab with the script. So Ben Raab, or Raab, whichever way his surname is pronounced, was the assistant editor on this particular comic. So really, at the time, I remarked to myself on the fact that the likes of Ralph Macchio and now Ben Raab were scripting over Scott Lobdell's plots. And it kind of made me think that Fabian Nicieza was really missed from the X-Office. They should have done what was needed to keep him on board. Because really Lobdell is struggling to plot Uncanny X-Men, Adjectiveless X-Men, and of course write Generation X, as well as various issues of X-Men Unlimited and miniseries and so on and so forth. The man is stretched thin, and in my opinion he's getting burnt out on the books by this point. So this is a gambit to inject a little freshness, a new twist into things, bring Sebastian Shaw back, and bring Shang-Chi into this 3-part story. So, and one other thing I want to mention before moving on is that we're going to get now for a while a nice visual complementarity between Carlos Pacheco as the regular penciler on X-Men and Joe Madureira as the regular penciler on Uncanny X-Men. Their styles are not exactly the same, but they're visually complementary, I would say, in the same way that Jim Lee and Whilce Portacio's styles were visually complementary on X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, respectively, some years earlier. So let's see how this story begins. Well, it doesn't begin in Hong Kong. It begins rather on the southern coast of Scotland, the home of British Secret Service agent Clive Reston. So arriving by boat is Shang-Chi. You can see the digital colouring here of his tattoo on his arm, the dragon tattoo on his arm, getting up from the boat and making his way all the way up to Clive Reston's seaside mansion, and thinking to himself about his prior relationship with Reston in MI6, saying that it was always convivial. And then he notices that the tide has suddenly shifted. I know Reston has had more than his fill of international espionage and intrigue, he thinks, and in truth, so is Shang-Chi. For that reason, I find it odd to be standing here. If not for the desperation in Reston's voice, I would have never forsaken my life of solitude, my pilgrimage, searching for the inner peace I'd so long sought to achieve from the foolish games of deceit and death, hence the title of the storyline. born of men's folly, I must tread cautiously. So this is bringing Shang-Chi out of, so to speak, retirement, but he's alert to his surroundings and he's twigging to the fact that something's amiss. It's just as I suspected, he thinks. I'm not alone and surrounded as well. Their distance says they've been stalking me since I docked. The sole question is, how many are there? So this is a pretty good opening. You can see how accomplished is Carlos Pacheco with his art, and our Thibert's inks over him. And I just note to myself now, I didn't read out all the creative credits. So we've got Art Thibert there on inks. Over here, Richard Starkings and Comicraft on digital letters. And Chris Lichtner and Liquid Color on colors and separations. So also the colorist of the cover there. So pretty nice artwork here. Really, Carlos Pacheco making a splash upon his arrival as regular penciler on this particular title. So let's see who has him surrounded. Well, it's a bunch of ninjas, and in terms of their design, it looks like they're straight out of Top Cow Comics, really, at least to me. So here's Shang-Chi framed by this horde of techno ninjas that are leaping at him, and he recognizes them. See, Fan Ninja, but I thought my father's elite order of assassins disbanded after his death. So any readers unfamiliar with the character are going to get caught up on some of the basics of his story world in respect of the thoughts he's having here, all of this exposition in his thinking. This cadre, he continues, may be sufficiently skilled to dispatch one lone warrior, but all their skills combined cannot deter a master of Kung Fu. So we're going to get this fight scene now, and we're maybe as new readers going to see what Shang-Chi can do. And so great fight choreography here from Carlos Pacheco. This is really good stuff, like these Kung Fu moves that he's drawing Shang-Chi making. And then it seems that despite all his martial arts, well, these ninja use guns as well. So he recognizes that he's up against it with the weaponry and uses one of the ninja as a human shield. And he continues with his expositionary thoughts. The Sea Fan once pledged their undying fealty to my father, but if it is not he who reaches out for me from beyond the grave, then who? Judging by their appearance, someone with great wealth and power has reunited them. Okay, so who might that be? Well, that's a mystery for this storyline. Shang-Chi is, in trouble here, and then we hear off panel a familiar voice indicated by the bespoke lettering there. Sure, ain't the most honourable o' sorts, are they, bub? And we hear a sound effect there, schlicht. Shang-Chi is wondering who this is, doesn't recognise the voice or the sound. It's Wolverine. And look at Carlos Pacheco's version of Wolverine. He really does look like a monster. The huge shoulders, not a pick of fat on him there as well in terms of his musculature, and a kind of a funny logo there on his belt buckle, American Beauty. So he introduces himself to Shang-Chi and he says, "Hey there, kid, I ain't sure how you're involved in all of this, but didn't your mama ever tell you sneaking around other people's turf is bound to get you into heaps of trouble and a world of hurt?" So Shang-Chi explains himself. He says, "The ninja retreat at your approach," or he asks rather, "never have I seen the silent assassins shrink before a boastful opponent. You've a history with them." But Shang-Chi here attacks Wolverine. History that is allowed for your arrogance in the face of such odds. So this is a classic Marvel Comics trope. When you have characters meeting each other for the first time, even if they're heroes, there's going to be a misunderstanding. So we can see, how is Shang-Chi going to go up against Wolverine, and how will he fare in that matchup? So he gets the boot into Wolverine's jaw first, and draws some blood, and Wolverine there smiling, saying first blood is yours, but make no mistake, when you throw down with Wolverine, you're throwing down with the best there is. So Wolverine's got some martial arts moves too, uses them there. Interesting open border panel as well. Yeah, we've got Carlos Pacheco breaking the borders of the panels quite a bit in this issue too. So here we have the struggle between Wolverine and Shang Chi, but ultimately Wolverine gets the better of the master of Kung Fu, because Wolverine is the best there is at what he does. Interesting little option here as well, where we've got another open border panel and the two figures in complete silhouette as well. So Wolverine gets Shang-Chi down on the ground, puts his two bone claws either side of his head, and of course the middle one there is pointed right at his throat. And he asks Shang-Chi there, want to see the third claw? So just at this moment, Storm arrives to break up the fight. Enough, Logan, she says. So she's striking him with her lightning, which is fairly brutal. I've never seen her do that before. This is a really nice page here. 3 panels, 3 vertical panels. Storm breaking the borders of the 2 panels either side of her. Really nice digital colouring as well. But I think this digital colouring would show up better on glossy stock paper and also on digital, on computer screen as well. It's a little muted on the newsprint here paper, this low quality paper that they shifted to away from the glossy paper stock in the mid to late 90s because of costs. So what's going on here? Well, Storm, we get some exposition here about her being co-leader of the X-Men. And then she says, we're here to gather information that may prove vital to the survival of mutants on the planet. Or have you forgotten? So Wolverine responds, he says, careful, Ro, I know what I'm doing. It was my old pal, Reston, who contacted us. So that's why the X-Men are there, warning me something was up, that it might have something to do with our old enemy, Sebastian Shaw, and the legacy virus. And I think this boy might know what it is. So of course, like, this is a device in order to communicate to readers what's going on here, but it's not very realistic that Wolverine would be repeating information to Storm that she knows very well. And so let's move on to the next page. Another great anchor image here, great use of perspective. All the X-Men up here on the roof. And it seems like there's only 3 so far, but there are another 2 along on this mission. So really nice work on the characters here by Pacheco. Good body language and acting there from Wolverine and his feral nature. Cannonball looks well in his costume. Storm again there. And nice rendering of the ironwork gate there. And Shang-Chi the other side hunkered down. It's good stuff. Cannonball says to Wolverine, now I may be the greenest X-Man on the block, but hitting first and asking questions later sure ain't the good guy's MO. So Wolverine replies, he says, you're lucky I'm feeling nice today, Cannonball, or else even your impenetrable blasting field wouldn't have kept me from learning you a thing or two about respect for a man's hunt. Okay, so again, more of this exposition telling us exactly what Cannonball's mutant power is. Maybe it would have been better to include that in a narrative caption rather than Wolverine's dialogue. But these are the decisions that Ben Raab is making. And I think, I'll just be plain about it. I think there's some legitimate criticism there. I don't like that when characters start explaining things in their dialogue. Much better to keep that for narrative captions in the third person. So Shang-Chi here, what does he say? Wolverine, Storm, Cannonball, forgive my ignorance, but who precisely are you people and why are you here? So he has no prior experience of the X-Men. So after some explanations, after more civil introductions are made, so now we're inside Reston's house. Again, really great work there on the perspective and the furnishing of the inside of the house. Even this little statue of Pan here up on the table. Lots and lots of good work by Carlos Pacheco. Shang-Chi thinking to himself, I find these X-Men fascinating, branded outlaws for the miraculous powers granted them by a genetic twist of fate, they have nonetheless chosen to use their gifts to protect the same humanity that seeks to eradicate them. One could call them men and women of honor, or fools on a hopeless quest. The gruff one, Wolverine, like myself, he shares a close connection to Reston from a time before I knew Clive. And then he smells cigarettes, Clive's brand, in the next room, but that's not all. He feels a presence here, just out of sight, but where? So Shang-Chi has kind of heightened senses, almost akin to Daredevil's. He doesn't have a radar sense or anything like that, but he has heightened senses of perception. And Phoenix is taken aback. I think we've been compromised, Scott. So Shang-Chi grabs the pan sculpture, and Scott and Jean are watching him from higher up in the house, and Cyclops wondering, how has he twigged to us? He's no scion, and despite his uncanny skills, he's certainly no mutant. As long as we communicate telepathically and you continue to mask our presence psionically, there's no way he can know that we're keeping tabs on him. I just hope he's amenable to cooperation. If Shaw's involved with research into the legacy virus, we may need all the help we can get, he says. So Shang-Chi throws the statue up at them, and Jean destroys it with her TK power. And then there emerges from the room downstairs Reston, and it looks like he has had an injury and his legs are in braces for support. So he greets Shang-Chi and he says, I told the X-Men you were always freelance restorations, polite one. Trying to make a liar out of me, are you? So Shang-Chi there says, Reston, what happened? Why have you summoned me here? Soon, pal. First meet Phoenix and Cyclops. I believe you already met their fellow X-Men. So there we go. Introductions, apologies. And Reston gets to the point. Why has he called Shang-Chi? Why has he made contact with Wolverine? Ghosts from our past may threaten the future, Shang-Chi, he says. A certain man, a powerful man by the name of Shaw, is very interested in finding a near mythical potion called the Elixir V. So that's Latin. The elixir of life is the meaning of it. The elixir, says Shang-Chi. I understand now, Reston. At long last, it's time for Shang-Chi to return home. And home for him is Hong Kong. So hours later, within range of Chinese airspace, we get more conversation here, which explains what's going on. Let's see, this is in relation to the back history of Shang-Chi and Reston. MI6 went through a radical restructuring in recent years, Reston says. What with all those black air embarrassments to the system, that's a reference to Warren Ellis's run on Excalibur. Leaner, meaner, that's the ticket nowadays. That's why our top-notch new intelligence net was able to unearth a rather shocking bit of dirt regarding your old man's former chemical endeavours. So this is the Elixir V. And let's see. So what is going to happen here? Well, we get some cordial talk here between Cannonball and Shang-Chi. And Shang-Chi gets to some explanations. My needs for vengeance have died with my father, he says. And there's a reference here to the classic Master of Kung Fu, issue 125, from Bob Harris. And here we go. So we're going to get some history on Shang-Chi and what is going on in Hong Kong currently. Reston says, or so we thought. Since your father's passing, his criminal empire has been slowly quartered by the following factions. The elderly Chiang Kai-dong's Sleeping Dragon clan, so this is him there. The corpulent Xian Ming Ho's Steel Lotus group, that's him there. Brash young Deng Ling Zhao's Wild Tiger Mob, him there. And let's see, and the insane Mao Liu Cho's Coiled Serpent Syndicate, so that's him over there. That is until weeks ago when the last of them disappeared. Not only that, but we believe that after months of subtle manipulations and obfuscations, Someone is seeking to acquire your father's greatest triumph and his greatest failure, the Elixir V, so the elixir of life. So you implied earlier, says Shang Chi, but I thought the secrets of that narcotic rest with my father in his grave. So more explanations here. Cyclops saying, these are trying times for mutants. A new disease has been unleashed. That's the legacy virus. And he says that a dead man's secret is nothing to desperate men. Such men exist within the Hellfire Club. We get an explanation of what the Hellfire Club is there. And that within the club is a secret group called the Inner Circle, a long-standing enemy of ours under the leadership of a mutant known as Sebastian Shaw. We suspect that Shaw desires the unthinkable, to test the elixir as a treatment for the legacy virus. And if it works, to use it as a personal safeguard against infection, then to hold it over the heads of a legion of agonizing souls. Okay, so that's our setup. So this is our means of making a connection between the world of the X-Men and the world of Shang-Chi, the Elixir Vitae, the Elixir of Life, and Shaw wanting to get his hands on it as a cure for the legacy virus and derive power from its possession. So, what does Shang-Chi have to say about all of this? He says, my friends, the beast who was my father was often called the most insidious man on earth. His legacy must not endure to threaten others. We must ensure that whatever this Sebastian Shaw plans does not come to pass. So Wolverine here, delighted to hear that and popping his bone claws. So, meanwhile, in Hong Kong, someone is sitting there smoking a cigarette and sitting in silhouette on some kind of big chair. And we get a soliloquy. Hong Kong, the beauty and profitability of your maritime ports once made you the jewel in the Chinese territorial crown. That is, until you became a concession of war after China's defeat in the First Opium War. Why is he explaining all of this to himself? In any case, he says, but in a matter of months, that lease shall expire. That's the China's lease of Hong Kong to the British, and you will be returned to your former masters in the now communist Middle Kingdom, unless, of course, I have any say in that matter. So whoever this is wants to take over Hong Kong. And then his underling intrudes. And what is this there? What is this? Is this a ring on the silhouetted finger of a hand? Is that what we're looking at? Well, it's the only clue we get as the identity of this person. So the underling backs away with apologies, and the guy in the chair says, what does he say? Guests have arrived, in quotation marks, as predicted. I shall prepare their reception. And the man in the chair says, be sure to welcome them more warmly than your predecessor. So he's sweating bullets there, and he's got his hand on his gun. And then we go downtown, Hong Kong, downtown. That's a really great top-down shot there. Lots and lots of detail. You know, look at all the people there on the street as well. Really, and all of the Chinese characters too. Really, you would have to say that Carlos Pacheco is pulling out all the stops on this issue. He really is putting everything into this. So then we get a nice shot of Storm there inside the car, the limousine, and she's talking to Shang-Chi, who seems troubled. He says, you're perceptive. My father was a soulless man. In my estimation, there's no greater foe, but perhaps I'd forgotten that the world is threatened by other equally soulless men, and ignoring such ruthlessness is itself a crime. So Shang-Chi thinking differently now about his retreat from the world, thinking that maybe he should be involved still in making the world a better place, let's say. So Cyclops says to him, we draw strength from our unity, Shang. It's all we have. Call me idealistic, but that should be enough to stop him. So one would hope, Cyclops says. Shang-Chi looking out the back window of the car. And then a block or so behind, we've got Wolverine and Cannonball following. And that was just in case because Wolverine says you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So now Wolverine spots something. Something ain't kosher up ahead, he says. So he calls out to Jean telepathically. You've got to haul your butts out of there right now, he says. And then there is a flash, an explosion, and it looks like the car explodes. And as the Holocaust of molten metal and burning slag spreads down the street, Wolverine braves the scorching heat, risking life and limb to ensure that his friends have survived the blast. What about everyone else on the crowded street? In any case, amazingly enough, they have. So Jean saved them with a TK force bubble, and here is who attacked them. More of these C-fan cyber ninjas. So Wolverine, great upshot there of Wolverine looking up at these guys. He says, something tells me the party's just been crashed. Welcome to Hong Kong, X-Men, says one of the ninja. You will not survive the experience. So really great, almost complete double page spread there. And again, look at all the detail with the Chinese, what do we call them again? Pictograms here. And they're all in neon as well. And that's the digital effects of Liquid in operation there. So next, East meets West like never before. And guess who's caught in the middle? Well, of course, it's the X-Men, yes? So 2 pages of letters here. X-Men 58 and 59 are the subject of those. Nothing else interesting there. And another little plug for what's coming up next month. Sebastian Shaw pursues an unholy path while one of Marvel's deadliest villains returns. There you go. Oh, this is nice. We get an advertisement, 3 pages of advertisement for Andy Kubert's new project, which is Kazar. So you've got some really nice drawings there, some in black and white as well, inked by Jesse Delperdang. And over the page here, you've got this really nice piece which shows us the art going from pencils to inks and colors on this side. That's really, really good stuff. Very interesting. Does a good Zabu there as well. Oh, an advertisement here for Uncanny X-Men issues 342 to 344 by Lobdell, Madureira and Townsend. So basically it's going to be the X-Men in space. And that will involve the Shi'ar, of course. There you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men 62. It is Carlos Pacheco's first issue of his run on the title as regular artist. Really, as I said earlier, pulls out all the stops on this one artistically. The story is okay. It's all right. It's not really amazing or anything like that. It's a competent story. And I feel there just wasn't enough action here in this first part of the 3-part story. There was a lot of exposition, a lot of explanation, and shoehorned into the dialogue as well. A little bit clunky, a little bit awkward in that regard, but fantastic art, really. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.